Denial of healthcare services is just one of the ways English-speaking Quebecers say they're experiencing discrimination because of Bill 96. Well, now a task force representing Quebec's English-speaking community is seeking an injunction to challenge the new law. It came into effect June 1st, 2022, and it is meant to preserve French language in the province, despite concerns that it will create challenges for some residents in accessing necessary provincial services. So joining us from Ottawa this morning with more, at a closer look at the bill's implications on Anglophones in the community is Andrew Cadell. He's the president of the Task Force on Linguistic Policy. Welcome to your morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie, and bonjour, Canada.
Andrew, what's included in this injunction?
Our injunction's intent really is to fight back against the Legault government, and we're hoping to stop the further application of Bill 96 in its tracks. People across Canada have no idea how mean-spirited, egregious, and ethnocentric this law really is. And we have 30 examples of people who've been discriminated against in very, very serious ways that could have affected their lives. In fact, one woman nearly died of sepsis when she was turned away from a hospital because they wouldn't. She wanted them to speak English to her, and so these are life and death situations in many cases, and it's just unacceptable. So we had to do this. We had to take this step.
I want to get into more of some of the cases that you were just talking about here. Here's one that I think most people across the country have probably heard or read about by now, and that's Concordia University recently saying applications from out-of-province students wanting to continue studies in Montreal are down by 30%. And they point to higher tuition fees, but also to the new language laws and the requirements for the drop. So what does this law look like on a day-to-day basis for an English person living in Quebec? You mentioned this woman who was turned away from a hospital because she wanted her health services in English, but what else do you cite?
Well, first of all, the tuition increases are not part of Bill 96, but they are part of this mean-spirited approach that comes from ministers in the Legault government, and the Premier himself have said they hear too much English spoken on the streets of Montreal. Well, the Premier's office is opposite McGill University and is next to an English bookstore, so he's bound to hear some English when he's on the streets around his office. But the bill itself, one of the worst things about it is that they have a category called historic Anglophone. And an historic Anglophone is someone, supposedly, and it's in the bill, that has had their education in English in Canada, the majority of their education. Now, for example, my father was born in Brantford, Ontario, but he spent 7 years in Scotland as a child. So he would not qualify as an historic Anglophone, even though he lived in Quebec all his life until he died, and was a very proud Canadian, a patriot. But because of his 7 years of schooling in Scotland, would not be eligible. And we have 500,000 people like that in Quebec who are English-speaking who cannot get services from the Quebec government because they are not, quote-unquote, historic Anglophones.
So what are you hoping this injunction will do?
We're hoping it will stop the government in its tracks. They've created this climate of fear and insecurity among the Anglophone community, and every week that goes by, there's another initiative that encroaches on the rights of Anglophones, Anglophone citizens, taxpayers, Quebec taxpayers. And so we have to stop that. We have to create a counterweight and a counter-argument to what is the Legault's very ethnocentric approach to government.
The injunction is expected to be heard in Quebec Provincial Superior Court early February, so a few weeks from now. If it goes through, who enforces it?
Well, in principle, anytime an injunction is admitted, the government can no longer apply the sections of the law that we're challenging. We're challenging the law in its entirety. So that means that you could not refuse services to somebody who is a so-called who's not a so-called historic Anglophone, or you could not. You would have to provide services in English in various government departments if they were requested.
Andrew, a great conversation. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.